Do you also come across great photos online and wonder as to how these were captured? Did the photographer just get lucky? What were the camera settings? What the raw file looked like? Well, this level of information is generally not available with any photo online. That is exactly what we do in this video series. I'll be taking you through some of my best street captures so far and explaining you the process end to end. Right from the time I started towards the location to the camera settings, raw file, editing and everything in between. So hello and welcome to the 6th part of this 9 video series where I uncover some of my best street captures so far. My name is Bhavik Telisra, I'm a street photographer and I've been capturing photos for more than 4 years now. So let me present to you one of my luckiest photos so far, uncovering the stray story. So I was practicing photography on CST Mumbai. That was the time I recently got my first camera. So I was still very new to dialing in the camera settings, what is the white balance, how to set the focus, etc. etc. While strolling around, I came across this scene where a bunch of kittens were playing on a footpath. They looked absolutely mesmerizing as the golden sunlight was hitting their fur. So I decided to get a few photos of them. So I bent down on my knees and started getting a few photos of them at their eye level. It was very difficult to keep them in focus because they were constantly running and jumping around. So while all of this was happening, a local street side shopkeeper came outside his shop and kicked one of the kittens away from his shop. In that fraction of a second, I clicked the shutter button and I got this photo. Let me tell you one more secret. My camera was on single shooting mode and not on continuous shooting mode. For new photographers, single shooting is when you get one photo on a single click. It sounds something like, when you are on a continuous shoot, you get multiple photos in one click. It shoots on burst. It sounds something like. So the point over here is that this is the only shot that I got from that scene. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. I was inexperienced, the camera settings were not dialed in, I was not aware what was going to happen in the next second, and I still got this shot, so I'm very happy with it. I like how the motion blur on the leg turned out, which shows the movement and the cat staring the leg while it is falling down. So this photo was shot on a Sony a6400 and a Tamron 17-70 f2.8 lens, and here are the camera settings. Now let's edit this picture inside of Adobe Lightroom. So this is what the raw image looks like. Let us start with composing the image. I'll try and place the cat and the leg at these two intersection points of the rule of thirds. That looks good. Now it is pretty clear that the image is very dark. So let me do a little bit of color correction to bring up the brightness a little. That looks a lot better. Let me show you the before and the after. So this is the before and this is the after. Before, after. Now to make the cat stand out from the background, I'll make a selection of it, increase the exposure, clarity and sharpness value. Let's take a custom brush. Let's zoom in a little. And let's make a selection. I'm making a pretty rough selection for the sake of the tutorial. But if I were to do it on a live image, I would do it much more precisely. There we go. Let us increase the exposure, clarity, and the sharpness. I'll repeat the same steps, but now only with the eye. So I normally bring up the highlights, shadows, and bring the blacks down. There we go. Let us zoom out. So here's a tip. A viewer would generally consider an image to be in focus if the eye of the subject is sharp. So make sure if you have a slightly out of focus image, the eye is a little sharper than the body. That is exactly what we've done here. Now, I feel that the attention is still not going towards the cat and the leg, So I'll make radial filters, brighten these specific parts and darken the rest of the image by using graduated and radial filters again. So let's do that. Let's start with a radial filter. I'll make a selection around the cat and increase the exposure. The same thing around the leg. Now let us reduce the exposure of the areas that we do not want to highlight, like the foreground. And I'll also make another radial filter at the center and reduce the overall exposure of the background. To take it a step further, let us also add a vignette, which will again do the same thing, darken the edges. There we go. Now, if you have seen my previous videos, you'll know that I like to add a light direction to my photo. In this photo, the light is hitting from this angle, so I'll try to enhance it a little more. I'll take a graduated filter and drag it along this side. Increase the exposure a little bit. There we go. Now the overall image seems a little overexposed. To balance that, let us reduce the exposure back down. Great. Now I'll head on to the color grading section. I'll not do much of color grading because eventually I'm going to make it black and white. So let us just mess around with the luminance values. Luminance is the brightness of a particular color. That looks good. Now for the last step, I'll reduce the saturation. I'll not make it completely desaturated, completely black and white. I'll keep just a little bit of color there. Because we are trying to show the sad story of stray animals, that is why we are taking a lot of color away from the image. Showing bright colors where we are showing sadness won't make a lot of sense. So now let us have a look at the before and after. So I hope that you enjoyed this video where we casually talk and learn more about photography by looking at actual examples. You can also check out the previous videos where we've decoded more such photos. In the next video, we'll be having a look at this photo. So stay subscribed and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I upload this. Till then, peace and bye.